Alright, so here we are at the Joya de Nicaragua factory. About to go in, have a short little history lesson. This is a separate video from the other one, but I hope you enjoy it. It goes through the history of some of Nicaragua, but the longest company that's been in business in Nicaragua is Joya de Nicaragua. So come on in, let's go have a look.
The land of lakes and lakes of water, excuse me. The land of water. That's why we call it Nicaragua. But Nicaragua actually is a tropical country located in the heart of the American continent. Offers a lot of things. Obviously, tobacco is one of the most important things that we promote, but we have a lot of things to tell about Nicaragua. This tropical country with two beautiful oceans provide a lot of beautiful beaches, lagoons, lakes, colonial cities like Granada, really beautiful and interesting beaches where you can visit, and obviously the chaotic Managua. And the volcanoes, the reason why our soils are so rich in nutrients. That's what provides all the nutrients for our tobacco and other products in order to obtain the best quality, and something that obviously you can enjoy every time you smoke tobacco from Nicaragua. But, well, changing the subject, we are now located in Esteli. I bet you have learned a little bit and studied a little bit more about Esteli. Esteli is called El Diamante de las Segovias. We Nicaraguan people used to nickname our cities. So why Esteli is El Diamante de las Segovias? The reason is because this is a very dynamic city. Obviously, the tobacco industry is the most important. This is the engine of the city. This is what provides most of the jobs in the city. More of the 60% in Esteli, people in Esteli, 60% population in Esteli are involved in some way in this industry. Not only talking about people that works in the factories making cigars, but also talking about other people that are involved in different ways, like transportation, administrative, like people that provide us paper, cellophane paper, boxes. So it's very, very dynamic. Well, at the same time, in Esteli, also worldwide is well known as the capital of tobacco in the world. This small town has more than 51 cigars manufacturers. 16 of them are large cigars factories, even bigger than Joya de Nicaragua, as Triste is the largest cigar factory in our country and the third in the world. So just imagine how important this industry is for Nicaragua, especially for Esteli. At the same time, there are 60 tobacco producers in this area, this region. But something that you have to know is that in Esteli are located most of the factory, but most part of plantation are located more north in what we call Jalapa Valley. It's located in Nueva Segovia, pretty close to the border of Honduras. And in there, more than 60% of tobacco that is cultivated in Nicaragua comes from. Well, in order to continue, what about Nicaraguan cigar industry? Well, as you know, Nicaragua has become one of the most important cigars producers in the world. This year, we became the very first. So we are number one now. Probably I don't have the record yet until it became official. I can't say it officially, but we are number one. Talking about expensive premium cigars worldwide. The reason, the quality. Probably you have tried and enjoyed, and you understand why. Nicaraguan cigars also are available in over 90 countries around the globe. And talking about Joya, because you are visiting Joya, we are in 50 countries around the globe. And talking about exportations, 80% of Nicaraguan production is exported to the US. Since the very beginning of this industry, for Nicaragua, US has been our most important client. For Joya, we are 50-50. 50% US, 50% rest of the world. So it's very important for us as a market. And talking about exports, talking about money, last year it's generated plus 230 millions. So this is becoming one of the most important products of exportation for our country. And the special thing about cigars, guys, is, as you know, cigars are not commodity. It's not a commodity, my apologies. Cigars is completely different. You don't really care when you buy sugar, right? About where it comes from. Not necessarily you're gonna say, I want sugar from Mexico, Colombia. But when you ask for a cigar, you ask for a brand. So that brand has a country of procedence. So that's why they're so special, because they are becoming one of the most important products for our Nicaraguan people. Well, but it's time to know how this industry was developed in our country. As everybody knows, the first time that Europeans get in contact with tobacco happens when Spanish arrived in the island of Cuba, right? There, they got in contact for the very first time with the tobacco. So when the Spanish arrived there, they noticed that our native people used to smoke this leaf. But for our native people, they were very special, because for them, it was the way that how they get connected with their gods. Every time they smoke go up to the heaven, they used to think that they were getting connected. The Spanish were very curious and they tried it. They liked it. And after that, they decided to take it back with them to the European continent. In there, that's where they start to roll the cigars, the tobacco, excuse me, and make the cigars that nowadays we all know and enjoy. Later, what happened was all these people decided to establish their companies in Cuba, and because, well, it was easier and cheaper for them. Plantations, fields were located in Cuba, so they decided to have the factories in there in order to make it easier. But what is the connection about Cuba and Nicaragua? Well, first, tobacco origin is from the whole American continent, okay? You can find different varieties from the South America to the north of North America, very north. Canada, or Cherokees, or native people from the US used to smoke tobacco, but different varieties. But in Cuba, there is the black one that is the tobacco that nowadays we cultivate in Nicaragua and we smoke. But how did it happen? It's because during the 50s in Cuba there happened a revolution. Because of this revolution, many Cuban people decided to leave the island in order to look for an alternative and escape from this revolution. In Nicaragua, we were already cultivating tobacco. Take a look to these very old pictures from the very first time that we started growing tobacco. Before black tobacco growing, in Nicaragua we were already cultivating tobacco, but the variety was Virginia. The American British tobacco was established in Nicaragua, and then after the Cuban Revolution, some Cubans decided to come to Nicaragua. Most of them moved to US, but those who didn't want to go to US decided to establish in countries nearby. But those countries were Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Countries that in some way they are very similar. Weather, culture, food, and relations kind of stuff. A couple of two men, oh, by the way, this is the north part of the country, okay? A couple of two men, they decided to come to Nicaragua because they heard that in our country we were cultivating tobacco, but it was Virginia, used for cigarettes. Nicaragua used to supply tobacco from the south region of the US. These two men decided to come here because, by the way, the pioneers of Nicaragua cigars, Don Francisco Bermejo and Simon Camacho. These two men heard that we were cultivating tobacco, and the government of Nicaragua financed foreign people to come to the country and develop this industry. Well, so they started to cultivate black tobacco because they were the ones who brought the black tobacco seed to our country. After they did that, because of the success of the cultivation and the quality of the tobacco, they decided to establish a factory. That's how Joya de Nicaragua was born on February 29th, 1968. So we already celebrate our 50. Well, without a specific date, so that's means that we can continue celebrating the rest of the year. So the very first picture taken, actually it was the very first picture taken during those days. The Cubans started to train Nicaraguan people. Actually, the facilities were located in a different place, downtown Esteli, a very smaller building. And the Cubans started to train Nicaraguan by using the Cuban style. But as you see, something happened later. At the same time, at the beginning of the 70s, more Cubans decided to come to Nicaragua and establish their own factories. Famous brands like Plasencia, Oliva, Padron, they arrived after that. Well, so We continue, as I said, Joya has experienced many different things during these last 50 years. Now, in the 70s, I want to show you a very interesting picture, and I want to tell you a story that changed the history of Joya de Nicaragua. Take a look at this. They were the three Somoza's presidents, father and his children. These people ruled our country for more than 40 years. They were dictators. But we are talking about this because it's part of the history of Joya. Take a look at this picture. Nixon and Anastasio Somoza Debayle, during the only one invitation, an official invitation that he had in the White House. So he was invited by Nixon. And they were talking and having a really good relaxed conversation. Somoza loved cigars. He and his family control more than 50% of private property in our country. So what are we talking about this? It's because during that visit happened something that changed the reality of Joya. During the visit to Somoza, they offered him a cigar. And for Somoza's surprise, the cigar they offered him was a Joya de Nicaragua. Somoza asked them if they were giving this to please him because he was from Nicaragua and the cigar was Nicaraguan. And they replied, no, sir, this is the official cigar of the White House. So he was like in shock. Why? Because he controlled the whole country. He knew Joya. Actually, his father was the one who financed the Cuban who arrived to the country. But he didn't know how important this brand was for the US, especially the White House. So the reason is because after the Cuban Revolution, as everybody knows, Cuba had an embargo from the US, and the Cuban product would be sold from the US till now. So the similar to the White House looked for an alternative, and he found a Joya sample in Vegas. He tried it, he liked it. For them, it was the closest cigar to the cigar that they were used to smoke. Talking about flavor, quality, and obviously the other different characteristic of the tobacco. So they decided to take you back to the White House and then you smoke it. So, what is your name?
Alvaro.
Alvaro. Just think like a good dictator. What would you do if you were Somozas as soon as you come back to Nicaragua?
Take over La Joya.
That's what he did, exactly. As soon as he came back to Nicaragua, he called the Cubans and said, guys, I would love to work with you. Just add a little bit of political pressure. Obviously, they couldn't refuse, and they said yes. 5 months later, he owned the 50% of Joya de Nicaragua. In a year, Joya de Nicaragua belonged to the Somoza's family. What happened with the Cubans? They moved. They left Nicaragua. Juan Francisco moved to U.S. Actually, he established in Managua, and Simon Camacho moved to Honduras, where he established the Camacho cigar. Have you ever tried a Camacho cigar? Well, so that was the same man that found Joya de Nicaragua here during the 60s. Well, so Somoza, even that he was a dictator, he was very ambitious and at the same time very optimistic. Somoza decided to make it bigger, and what he did, he built this building. So the building where we are located right now, it was built by a dictator. The idea of this building was in order to make about 30,000 cigars per day. Just imagine, during the 70s, it was a huge amount of tobacco, cigars, for those years. So, Somoza, he loved cigars. Just take a look at this picture. He is smoking a cigar, and but he didn't know how to make cigars. So what he did, he contracted more Cuban, came to Nicaragua and worked for him and continued training the Nicaraguan people. Well, but as you could imagine, Nicaragua experienced different changes. In the beginning of the 60s, many people started to complain because of the dictatorship. The reality for the country was very difficult. Notice this picture, a very young man fighting against the Somoza's army. And that video is from Esteli during the 70s. Nicaraguans started to become like the eye of the hurricane for the rest of the world. Nicaragua was living a movement, a change. And at the end, we had a revolution, and the Sandinistas triumphed. And Somoza was overthrown from war, and he left the country. In the next video, you can see all the Nicaraguan people celebrating El Triunfo de la Revolución Sandinista in Plaza de la Revolución, the typical video of all the people destroying the dictator statue, and the people celebrating. During those years, everybody support the Sandinistas. The Sandinistas were trying to make changes in the country. So look at this. By the way, this picture was taken just a couple of blocks from here. A man fighting with an American weapon, a crucifix, and a Molotov bomb. Notice, many people were motivated to fight. Nicaragua economies during these years was #1 in the Central American region. But the differences between rich and poor had a huge contrast. That's why many people decided to support the Sandinistas. Well, what happened later was, as probably you heard and read, the Sandinistas were influenced and supported by communist countries. And in the next picture, you can see the current president of Nicaragua taking position of the president of the country during the 80s. And his very close friend in the back, Fidel Castro. Yeah. So what happened was that the Sandinistas, as I said, were influenced with socialism and communism ideas. So the first thing that Sandinistas did as soon as they got in power, they started to confiscate all the private properties and look for all those properties that used to belong to the dictator. So Joya de Nicaragua belonged to the dictator. What happened with Joya? Joya became a co-op. At the same time, a couple of years later, people started to complain to the Sandinistas, new political system, and a new military group was developed or created, and they were called La Contra, who were secretly supported by the CIA and US, and a new war was established in our country. Most of them were located on the border of Honduras, and that affected a lot the industry. Why? Because if you, as I explained first, most of the tobacco fields are located in the north of the country. That's why, at the same time, many factories, companies, cigar companies, decided to leave Nicaragua, and only Joya de Nicaragua remained in the country. Most of them moved to Honduras. Well, so what's happened later, in order to fight against the Sandinistas, remember something, our most important client was US. US government established an embargo to Nicaragua. So we lost our most, and actually our only one client. So we got in difficulties because we couldn't sell our cigars. That's how we look for new markets. And since the 80s, Joya de Nicaragua looked for the European market. So you can find Joya de Nicaragua since the 80s in the European continent. Now we have presence in more than 50 countries. Sometimes circumstances can destroy you or make you stronger. So in this case, it helped us in some way. But at the same time, it was very difficult. US, as I said, was our only one client. And getting a new market that has been controlled almost 100% by Cuban cigars was very tough for us. Well, what happened later, guys, was that in the 90s, Nicaragua had democratic elections. What happened there was the people vote and they ask for changes. Look at the condition of Joya de Nicaragua in the beginning of the 80s. Let me introduce you this lady. She was the first lady president in Nicaragua and actually in the American continent. Her name, Joya de Nicaragua. She made something very extraordinary. Look at the condition of Joya. It was almost collapsed, in very poor conditions. I used to make fun of that, but look, that was a Drone State bus. They didn't even have a bus. Just kidding. And Panchita, a lady that probably you will see her later, she's been working here from the very first day that the company was established. Nowadays, she's the leader of in the quality control in the packaging area. So what happened with Joya was that the Joya continued being a co-op. The new government looked for investors, but it was very difficult to get investors in a post-war country. We didn't have any good conditions, no roads, no people for working. During the 80s, more than 100,000 Nicaraguan people died because of the war. So many people decided to leave the country and escape, looking for a new alternative and trying to save their life. It's something understandable. So it was very, very difficult for us. And talking about the cigar industry, not many people believe in this industry. Not many people believe in Nicaraguan cigars. People used to say, most of the workers that continue working here, that they used to work without getting any pay, only with the passion for making that the company could survive. And what happened later was that the workers contact a Nicaraguan gentleman. His name is Dr. Alejandro Martinez Cuenca. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see him before. This gentleman, a Nicaraguan man, loved cigars and with a great passion for his country. The workers, Benchita and other ones, used to call him. They said that they used to call him more than 20 times per day. Just imagine that. They used to ask him for help, to look for investors. But as I said, not many people were interested to invest in Joya. So at the end, he decided to acquire Joya de Nicaragua. And that was the moment in what we call a new era for Joya. Since 1994, Joya de Nicaragua belongs to Dr. Alejandro Martinez Cuenca, 100% Nicaraguan company. Mr. Chendo. Don Chendo was the very first ranchero that was, that I don't know how to say, was born in Nicaragua, in the cigar industry for Nicaragua, in Central America actually. He continued live. He's already retired, but he continued coming here. So this is Dr. Alejandro Martinez Cuenca. He couldn't come here today. He apologized, by the way. Well, if we continue in the middle of the 90s, something good happens that helped us a lot, guys. And it was the cigar boom. Somebody decided to create a specialized cigars magazine. Thanks to this great idea, we can say that this industry was safe. Why? As everybody knows, most part of the tobacco industry has been controlled most part of the time for the cigarettes industry, right? Most people used to smoke cigars. During the 60s, that's when the cigarettes industry was developed. Many people decided to smoke cigarettes, excuse me. And the cigar industry was getting an old-fashioned thing. Most people used to think that cigars were only smoked by rich people, politicians, or Cubans. But thanks to this kind of publicity, we can say, a new cigar culture was born in the US. They showed that everybody could smoke cigar. It doesn't matter if you are not rich, it doesn't matter if you are not Cuban, it doesn't matter if you are a politician. Everybody can smoke cigars. By the way, of all video of the late 90s, hurricane Mitch that affect a lot the industry too. But we continue working here, and here we are. Thanks to the cigar boom, Esteli became the capital of tobacco in the world. Per capita, let me tell you, that's per capita. Okay, this small town has more cigars factories than other bigger places. That's what I mean. And because of the cigar boom, and as I said, a new cigar culture was born in the US, the demand of cigars was really crazy. And that's why all the cigars companies that left the country came back in the 90s. New ones were created, like Drew Estate. New Estate was born in the late 90s, so that's a great example of how this industry was getting developed in the country. Thousands need a time for changes. We, Joya, used to only have one single brand, the Clásico. The Clásico was our most representative brand during many years. But when in the 2000s and in the middle of the 90s, the embargo ended for Nicaragua. And what happened was that we were back in the US market, but we introduced a new, different variety of cigars. That's how we introduced Antaño 1970. Antaño means yesterday year. In order to celebrate the 70s, that meant a lot for our industry. At the same time, Joya de Nicaragua was start to make noise. Well, we are talking about Antaño because it was the very first full-body cigar that was introduced in the US. So we corrupted you guys. That's why you love full-body cigars. Jonathan Drew and Dr. Alejandro Martinez Cuenca, very close friends. Since the 2000s, Drew Estates is our official distributor in the US. And we have been dealing and working together very well. At the beginning, not many people believed that it was going to work. Craziness. Just imagine the new modern guys in the cigar industry working side by side with the Clásicos. So it was like, what? Are you sure that it's going to work? Nowadays, we are very close and we continue working. And it's thanks to guys from the state staff that are in the back. Well, if we continue, I don't want you to get bored, guys. I will end by giving you an example of the last years of this period in order to understand a little bit better what we are today.